What if hell isn't ruled by one devil, but seven? Not random monsters, not mindless demons. 7 princes, 7 sins, 7 different ways humanity destroys itself. Lucifer is pride, the belief that you deserve more than the throne. Asmodeus is lust, obsession dressed up as passion. Beelzebub is decay, slow corruption that spreads before you notice. Belial is lawlessness, freedom without responsibility. Satanas is the adversary, the one who tests, exposes, and accuses. Leviathan is envy, the force that drags others down just to feel even. And Mammon is greed, the quiet hunger. These aren't just demons in old books. They are archetypes, patterns. Each one represents a flaw powerful enough to build empires and powerful enough to collapse them. The 7 princes of hell aren't just rulers of the underworld. They are reflections. And once you understand what each one stands for, you start seeing it everywhere. Lucifer. What if I told you Lucifer wasn't born a devil? He was heaven's golden child. Not horns, not fire, not pitchforks. Lucifer literally means the light bringer, morning star, the beautiful one, the favorite. He wasn't some random background angel. Tradition says he was high-ranking, powerful, radiant, the kind of being that walks into a room and even the angels feel it. And then pride happened. Some versions say he didn't like the idea of serving humanity. Some say he refused to bow. Some say he just looked around and thought, why am I not in charge? Either way, rebellion breaks out. Lucifer gathers followers, not 1, not 2, a third of heaven's host according to later tradition. That's not a tantrum, that's a movement. He challenges divine authority and he loses. Cast down, not gently, not ceremonially, he was dropped. But here's where it gets interesting for the 7 princes of hell. Lucifer doesn't become some mindless beast. He becomes the embodiment of pride, the highest sin, the original I deserve more. In Demonology, especially later medieval traditions, Lucifer isn't just a fallen angel. He's one of the 7 princes of hell, and often the highest ranked. The crown of rebellion, the symbol of arrogance that started it all. Not chaos, not wrath, pride. Now, Asmodeus changes the tone perfectly. Lucifer is pride, big cosmic rebellion. Asmodeus is personal, intimate, ugly in a different way. He is lust, not romance, not poetry, obsession, jealousy, possession. In the book of Tobit, he falls in love with a woman named Sarah. Sounds sweet, right? No, it's not. Every man who tries to marry her dies on the wedding night. Asmodeus kills them, one by one. 7 husbands. That's cinematic. He's often described as twisted, sometimes with multiple heads, sometimes monstrous, sometimes disturbingly charming, which fits. Lust rarely looks dangerous at first. And in a 7 princes structure, he rules over desire gone feral. After pride falls, desire takes over. Lucifer is pride, Asmodeus is desire, and Beelzebub is decay. His name literally gets translated as Lord of the Flies, which sounds almost cartoonish until you understand what that means historically. Rot, corruption, things that gather around death. Originally tied to a Philistine god, later demonized in Jewish and Christian tradition, Beelzebub becomes associated with gluttony, excess, infestation. Not fleshy rebellion, not dramatic passion. He's slow ruin. the kind that doesn't kick the door down. In medieval demonology, he's often ranked just under Lucifer, sometimes second in command, not because he's loud, but because corruption spreads faster than violence. If Lucifer represents the moment pride says, "I deserve more," Beelzebub represents what happens when excess is never checked. Empires don't fall from one decision, they rot. He's the prince of that rot. Alright, now we get to Belial. Lucifer is pride, Asmodeus is desire, Beelzebub is decay, and Belial is lawlessness. His name basically means worthless or without a master. No ruler, no restraint, no loyalty. In older texts, Belial isn't just a demon, he's a concept. People described as sons of Belial were violent, corrupt, useless. He represents moral collapse. But in later demonology, he becomes one of the 7 princes of hell. And here's what makes him dangerous. Belial doesn't need chaos. He whispers independence. He convinces you that rules don't apply, that consequences are exaggerated, that you're smarter than the system. He doesn't lead rebellions like Lucifer. He doesn't seduce like Asmodeus. He doesn't rot things slowly like Beelzebub. He simply removes structure. And once structure is gone, everything else falls apart on its own. Belial is the prince of corruption without ideology, of selfish freedom with no responsibility. Pride changes authority, desire consumes, decay spreads, but lawlessness makes collapse feel justified. If hell had a political strategist, it would be Belial. Satanas. Not the cartoon version, not the pitchfork meme. The word Satanas comes from ha-Satan, the adversary, the accuser, the challenger. Originally, he wasn't the ruler of hell. He was the prosecutor. In the book of Job, Satanas isn't rebelling. He's questioning. He walks into the divine court and basically says, "You think your servant is loyal? Well, let's test that." And permission is granted. That's the key. Satanas doesn't act alone. He exposes weakness. In later tradition, he evolves. He becomes the embodiment of wrath, the enemy, the tempter, the voice that pushes doubt in certainty. But even then, he doesn't swing wildly. He challenges. He tempts, he accuses, and he pressures. Satanas represents confrontation with your flaws. Not pride like Lucifer, not lust like Asmodeus, not rot like Beelzebub, and not collapse like Belial. He forces the test. If Lucifer says, "I deserve more," Satanas says,
"Prove you deserve anything."
That's what makes him terrifying. Not chaos, not fire, judgment. Leviathan. Not a fallen angel, not a whisperer, a monster. Leviathan shows up in ancient Hebrew texts as sea serpent, a chaos creature, something so massive that only God can defeat it. He's not subtle. He is the ocean when it decides you don't matter. In later demonology, Leviathan becomes one of the 7 princes of hell, often tied to envy. And that actually fits, because Leviathan isn't pride like Lucifer. He isn't desire like Asmodeus. He isn't decay like Beelzebub. He is the feeling that someone else has something you don't, and the urge to drag them under for it. The sea doesn't argue, it swallows. And Leviathan represents chaos that waits. Depth you can't measure, force you can't reason with. He's not rebellion, he's what exists before order. If Lucifer is the fall from heaven, Leviathan is what was already in the dark. Cold, ancient, and hungry. And unlike the others, he doesn't need followers. He is the abyss itself. And then we finish with Mammon. If hell had a CEO, his name would be Mammon. Or I could also say, Lucifer fell from heaven, but Mammon owns it. Well, Mammon is greed, and he's the most modern of all of them. Mammon isn't a monster in early scripture. The word literally means wealth, money, possession. Over time, it becomes personified, not just riches, but worship of riches. And that's the shift. Mammon doesn't tempt you with rebellion. He doesn't need to destroy you violently. He convinces you that accumulation equals power, that worth equals value, that people are assets. He doesn't roar, he builds. Empires, systems, markets. And then makes you believe you're free while serving them. In Demonology, Mammon becomes one of the princes of hell because greed is quiet, respectable, and even admired. Lucifer fell because of pride. Mammon never falls. He thrives because unlike the others, he doesn't ask you to sin. He asks you to succeed. And that's why he might be the most dangerous of all. So now you've met them. Not just names from old grimoires. Not just demons with dramatic titles. Pride, lust, greed, envy, wrath, decay, and lawlessness. 7 rulers, 7 weaknesses, 7 forces that don't need flames or horns to operate. Because the truth is, none of them feel supernatural. They feel familiar. They show up in power, in ambition, in politics, in relationship, in the quiet decisions nobody sees. That's what makes them dangerous. The 7 princes of hell don't conquer cities with armies. They conquer people from the inside. And if the 7 ruled the underworld, then one question remains. If these are the princes of hell, who is the king?